Hello everyone, this is a cumulative video on basically the rest of your semester. You will need to complete week 7, which is dictionaries, sets and Pico. Dictionaries and Pico may be very useful for your final project, so do understand them well. I will speak about this final project later in this video, but my suggestion would be to actually use both dictionaries and Pico. So by all means, complete this homework and quiz and discussion as soon as you can. And before I actually go to the project itself, let me have talk to you about final exam. Now, first of all, final exam is optional. So if you don't take it, it does not count against you. If you do take it, then whatever grade you get will be your grade. There is a review guide and some information, and yeah, feel free to do it. If you like additional practice, it is a really good practice. Okay, and now on to the final project. Now you are only asked to submit the project itself, not the paper that usually accompanies it. And you should begin by reading the project description. The project description may look to you very complex if this is your first ever project. And that's okay, so keep reading it so that you actually know it and you start planning what to do and you think about the hints and suggestions that are down below in the project description. So basically you want to create a text game. There is no graphics. You are controlling your character by typing in commands or maybe choosing from options 1 through whatever. And you get prompts, basically printing statements that explain what's happening or what you need to do. So your player should have at least 4 stats, at least 2 of which are variables. Like a name of a player, you just ask about it in the beginning and you probably don't need to change it ever again. You can have player health or power as integers or floats. I recommend simply better just integers. And you will need to collect items. There will be a couple of items, like you can have a boolean variable like has sword equals true or solved puzzle equals false, and so on. Your game needs to include 5 different rooms, and I use the word rooms in quotation marks. Instead of rooms, it can be some other features where you can do things like castle or wise man's hut or bridge with trolls and whatever you like. Or it can be classes at BPC that you need to take. And each room should have at least 4 things to do. It can be solving a puzzle, increasing a stat in some way, finding an item or looking for an item. Maybe most rooms will not yield any items, but 1 or 2 of them will. Or getting a hint or just chit chat with like in-game character. Like in-game character tells you something, yeah, whatever. So not all of them need to change your stats, but at least 2 or couple of them should. So I would say a couple of them per room should do something to your stats, at least. And the player should be able to return to a room any number of times, but of course, if the player picked up a sword once, the player should not be able to pick up an identical sword. So that feature with getting a sword may be available only once. And the game should have at least 2 items that can be collected, and the game should have a puzzle. I don't really care how complex your puzzle is. I'm grading based on your programming, not how witty your puzzle is. So if your puzzle is what is 2 plus 2, that's a little boring, but completely fine with me. I will not deduct any points for your puzzle being basic. Of course, there is some interaction, asking a question, getting an answer, and whether the answer is right or wrong, having an option to answer again. definitely should be there. The game should have a save and load feature. Whatever variables you defined previously, you need to save them because this is the game state, and this is whether the player saved, has a sword or solved the puzzle, and you should be able to save and load it. About the save and load feature, a quick hint here. If you were following my videos for chapter 9 about the Pico, I do recommend using Pico. And if you look into my drive file and chapter 9 Pico example, I think should be that. There is a few examples there with a Pico. So this is how you can save. This is a function to save and to load from Pico, and you can call this function on a dictionary, which is probably what you want to do for your project, or for on a list, which you may also do. So go back and rewatch that video, which is talking about the Pico, and you can use this code if you like. All right. Now further, so basically 5 rooms or environments and 4 things to do in each of them. One can be, say, a printing statement, somebody telling you something. And overall, do's and don'ts. First rule, if this is your first or second project, start simple and start doing something very quickly before, and try to create a simple project stump or simple little program that will work and satisfy some of the requirements. I cannot imagine you having a project without using some sort of loop, a while loop in the main. You definitely do want to use functions. And with that in mind, I have a little tiny stump here. I will not show you the code, but I will run it for you. And okay, I guess I need to call main here. Enter your name. Well, enter in my name. So I don't have like a game story, so I initialized like variables, level, number of room visits, and action. The loop will go on until quit. Choose action. So far there is 2 actions, room or quit. For example, I choose room. And there are only 2 options, 2 things to do in this room. Either type hello to increase level by 1 or search to look for a hidden item. So I type hello. It tells me that my level increased by 1. Maybe you do want to have a more meaningful interaction there, resulting in level increase, and that's okay. Or you want to increase something else like health, or maybe you want to keep track of in-game time, like how many rooms you visited, in order to like escape or whatever. And I can visit the room again and see I have another variable counting how many times I'm visiting this room. That's just for fun. I want to see you that you are able to create some variables and change the variables through the game and report the results. So definitely I should be able to visit the same room more than once, and the interactions should be meaningful in that scenario. Okay, so I can try to do a search and search. How come? Room. Yeah, so this design basically kicks me out of the room after I try something, but also it does handle the bad input. Okay, so search again. I entered the room. There is no hidden item here, bad luck, so I didn't realize any hidden items here. And finally I can quit. In this case there is no winning condition, so I just reached level 2 because of what I did earlier, and I could keep pumping the level by this simple design, just typing hello in the room and getting another level. So this is a little stump. It has a main, it has a function room1, and it has a slightly more advanced design. It uses a dictionary for keeping track of a player information. You don't have to do that. If you like, you can do this project using just what you learn in chapters 2 through 5. So like function is the most advanced thing that you really want to use. And even without functions, you can do it, but it's going to be a little bit more tricky to debug. Okay, in further videos, I will show you more examples, but I do want to say some do's and don'ts here. Okay, so do's and don'ts. Some people go ahead and Google text game Python and go to one of these either videos or some tutorials, and unfortunately that very often results in copy paste or type up directly from a video. And that is not what I want to see and not what I want to deal with. So if you want to learn someone else's code or use someone else's ideas, that is fine. Go look at it, go read it, then take a break for a couple of days and then start developing your game from scratch. Again, the key to start, sit down, create a very simple code for spend 1 hour, create a simple code with like one while loop and one room doing something, and then build on it. Build in order to satisfy the requirements. You might have an overall plan, but please do not plan for anything grand and huge. You have limited time to finish your project, and your goal is to satisfy the requirements and get a good grade. Now, as a bonus, if you've been listening to this part of the video, if you submit it more than 1 day early, you are getting a 5 points bonus. 5 points bonus is a lot for this project, which is worth 20% of the grade and has like 75 points altogether. So take advantage of that. And another advice, the last part of developing of your project is usually much harder when you get to debug the whole thing and you get to make it work all together. So last thing you want to do as a beginner is start this project on the last day it is due and try to do it at once. So that usually does not work. So 2 things. Start simple, create a simple beginner beginner code that works and develop on it. And second, give yourself time to develop, to debug, to sleep on it, to develop and debug again. And that usually yields much better results. Now, another thing that is very important, as you are developing your project, do some rudimentary version control. That is, first file is simple and basic, then save as another like version 1, version 2 as you are developing. Because sometimes as you develop and debug, maybe you forget to debug and you make too many errors to be able to effectively catch them, and you might want to actually go down to the previous version. So I created a couple of few versions as I was developing the project, and then I downgraded it for whatever reason, and that is all completely fine. I had save and load realized over here and other things, and then I simplified it. So say this version is probably 40 lines, this original version was like 20 lines, and definitely on your first day or first hour of project development, have 20 lines that satisfy some of the requirements for this project and start there and build more and better. Okay, and finally, submission of this project. What do you need to submit? I do ask you to submit code and also a txt file that is for checking the plagiarism. I ask you to not take and modify someone else's code as people sometimes do it. They change the variable names and they change the printing statements, and that is by no means not an original code. Okay,